Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another meal prep video. We have two breakfasts and a lunch this week to share with you. So one of the breakfasts is going to be a breakfast sandwich, and you guys know I always try to mix it up with my breakfast sandwiches. Also going to do a French toast English muffin, never made it before. And then for the lunch option is going to be a chicken tortilla soup. And this turned out really good. It's a creamy chicken tortilla soup. I'm not sure why they call it tortilla soup when you don't put tortillas in it. I have tortilla strips I'm putting on top, but if y'all know why they call this tortilla soup, let me know because it did not have any tortillas in it. We are starting with the chicken soup. So for seasonings, we need 3 tablespoons of taco seasoning or 1 package, 1 teaspoon of cumin, a dash of cayenne. We need 1.5 cups of frozen corn, or you can use a whole can of canned corn, 5 cups of chicken broth, a can of black beans that you're going to drain. We need 1 tablespoon of tomato paste, and then a whole can of undrained diced tomatoes with green chilies like the Rotel. And then you want some chicken, and then we are going to do a we're going to do a half of a cup of white onion. And then I did 1 really large jalapeno diced. We need a 1/3 cup of the third less fat cream cheese, and then 1.5 cups of your choice of shredded cheese. I'm using this Velveeta. We also need some minced garlic. So the first thing I'm going to do is take some cooking spray, and then I'm going to saute up my onions and my jalapeno. And you can add in more jalapeno if you'd like. I thought this was going to make more, so I probably should have done 2. I did have an extra one, but it's okay. The one I put in there was pretty large, so it still has a ton of flavor. So we're just going to saute that up until it starts to get softened, and then we're going to add in our minced garlic. So you guys know I never measure my minced garlic. I just put like a heaping, like teaspoon, tablespoon, whatever, of the minced garlic, and then I'm going to go ahead and mix that around as well until it gets nice and fragrant. You can really start to smell it. That's when you know your garlic is done, when it's all nice and toasty. Once your onions and peppers are cooked, we're going to add in the tomato paste. Now, I am doing this a little bit different than the original recipe. I prefer to put my tomato paste in at the same time with my spices because the tomato paste to me is very, very strong tasting. So I like to kind of cook it down a little bit before I add in like the broth and things like that. So I like to kind of get it warm. I feel like it just has a lot better, like less of that kind of strong tomato taste. And the same with the spices. Like I feel like you need to warm up your spices to really get the most out of them. So I always add my spices and tomato paste in with whatever veggies that I'm sauteing up before I add in any kind of liquid into it. So I'm just going to do this for a minute or so. And then we're adding in the full can of Rotel tomatoes and the full can of drained black beans. I thought the camera was rolling, but it wasn't. And then I'm just going to do about 3/4 of a bag of this corn. So about 1.5 cups of frozen corn. And then we're going to give that a stir. Again, I'm just going to stir this around a little bit before I add in the broth just to make sure everything gets nice and incorporated. Now I needed 5 cups of broth, so this 1 container of the Imagine chicken broth is 4 cups. And then I had about a cup left in the refrigerator from last week of the Simple Truth kind, which after comparing the two, the Simple Truth broth and the Imagine, which the Imagine's always been my favorite, the Simple Truth has such a darker color to it, and it tastes so much better. So I'm going to start getting that one. Also, put your chicken in. I forgot to mention to put your chicken in. So we're going to go ahead and put our broth in, our chicken in. Now you can also use pre-shredded chicken, and if you do that, then of course you don't have to cook your soup as long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this to a gentle boil. And I really liked the tip that was in this recipe. She said if you bring it to a really like rough, like rolling boil, then your chicken's going to be really tough. And I already knew that, but that's, I'm glad that she mentioned that because I always forget to mention that. So anytime you're like poaching chicken or putting chicken in a stew, like raw chicken in a stew or a soup, always bring it to like what they call a gentle boil. And so how you do that is you just put it kind of on lower heat. And then we're going to put the lid on just partially, again, just so we don't get that like big boil. And then once it's cooked, it might take about 20 minutes because my chicken breasts were pretty thin. And then we're just going to shred this up, which you can use a mixer for this, but I don't use my mixer very often. You all know I'm not a baker. I don't like to really bake things very often. So I don't have my mixer really accessible, but I know a lot of people, those people who are out there who are bakers, use your mixer to shred up your chicken because it is much, much easier. But like I said, it'd just be more of a pain for me to get out. So I'm just going to shred it up with 2 forks. And we're going to put that chicken now back into the pot. And then I'm just going to heat this through again. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn off the heat on this. And the reason I'm doing this is because the recipe said to make sure that your mixture is not too hot before you add in your cheeses because they won't melt. So I knew that about cream cheese, but I did not know that about shredded cheese, which it makes so much more sense now because there are times when I have tried to add shredded cheese to a really hot liquid and it did come out like where it did not melt, and I could never figure out why it did that. So I'm so glad that this tip was in this recipe because now I know. So I went ahead and turned off the heat. And then I'm just going to add in dollops of this cream cheese. And like I said, it's a 1/3 cup. And it's been sitting out for quite a while. Like since I first started my meal prep, I took the cheeses out because it said also to make sure they're like at room temperature. The cream cheese just felt like it was still just as hard as it was when it first came out of the refrigerator. But I think whipped cream cheese would work really good in this. But the cream cheese did melt really well. So after I got the cheeses in there, I went ahead and turned up the heat just a little bit just to get it to melt down because my mixture ended up being just a little bit too cold for the cheese to melt. So I turned my heat up to about 2 on my stove and then just kind of let it heat up a little bit, and it came out absolutely perfect. You can see here how it looks nice and creamy. All the cheeses have melted down. So now I went ahead and I'm going to weigh this on my scale and divide it by 6 because I want 6 servings. And this is what 4 of the 6 servings looks like. These are the ones that my son's going to take with him to work. And I have some jalapenos and then some tortilla strips on the side. You can also add more cheese, sour cream, but for me, I tasted it and it tastes creamy enough where I don't think it needs any extra like sour cream or plain non-fat Greek yogurt is what I use in place of sour cream or cheese, but you can definitely add all that on there. But definitely I will let you know how this ends up reheating and stuff when I have it for lunches next week. Next up, we're going to make one of my breakfast options, which is going to be pumpkin spice French toast English muffins. I have never made anything like this before, so I thought I would just give it a try. The recipe that I took from this was using bread, and it did end up making a lot more than what I needed, and I'll show you that at the end. So what I'm actually putting into my bowl here is a 1/2 cup of pumpkin puree, 4 eggs, 2/3 of a cup of fat-free 1/2 and 1/2, a teaspoon of vanilla, 2 tablespoons of Sucre Gold or any sweetener of choice, a teaspoon of cinnamon, a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg, which I'm going to use apple pie spice instead, and then your English muffins. So I wanted to use pumpkin pie spice, but I am out of pumpkin pie spice, y'all, but I had apple pie spice. So you want to go ahead and mix this, which my bowl ended up being a lot smaller than it needed to be. But you want to whisk this up until everything's all nice and combined. Now, just to let you know that make sure you kind of scrape the bottom a little bit because my pumpkin went right to the bottom and I didn't realize it until I was really just focusing on whisking the eggs up. So make sure you really whisk it up really good and scrape your whisk at the very bottom where that pumpkin settled. So now I've had these English muffins kind of soaking in this pumpkin mixture. And of course my pan, I sprayed it with some cooking spray. And then we are going to go ahead and cook them just like a regular French toast. Again, I have never seen any kind of recipe like this before. I'm sure there's probably some out there, but I've never come across anything like this before. So we'll see how they turn out. And actually, I'll kind of give you a little heads up. They turned out really good. And I had some for breakfast today. So I will tell you that they did turn out really well. But I did notice like this first ones turned out absolutely perfect. But all the ones after that got really, really cooked. And I think my pan just got too hot and it never did cool down very well. But it worked out really well. And so I had these English muffins left over from last week. I had to use them up, and this was a great way to use them up. This is how much mixture I had left, about half. So definitely if you're going to use English muffins for this, cut your recipe in half. So that's how I'm putting it in my tracker, is actually half of all the ingredients that I told you, because I want to make sure I'm tracking it accurately. And here is my plate of a French toast. Now, one of the ways you can serve this, which is how I will probably eat it, is because I want to add in some more protein to it. So I'm going to add in some hard-boiled eggs. So I did also make some hard-boiled eggs in my pressure cooker. So here is an example of how you can meal prep this. So you could have like your 2 pieces of English muffin, a couple of hard-boiled eggs, and then some sugar-free syrup on the side. And the last recipe in today's video is going to be breakfast sandwiches. Now I found these buttermilk Thomas English muffins and I thought they looked amazing. And then we're going to use some onions. I have purple and green and also some bell peppers. This is some pepper jack cheese, sliced cheese. And then I have some oven roasted turkey breast and then of course eggs. And I think I used 8 eggs for this recipe, possibly. Yes, I'm pretty sure I used 8 eggs. So on this pan here, I'm just going to spray it pretty well with cooking spray. Then we're going to sprinkle on all of our veggies. So you can also do spinach. You could put your meat in it this way like I did before. But for me, I'm just going to do my purple red onion. I call it both. And then my bell peppers and then my green onion. And then I'm just going to pour the egg mixture over top. Again, there's so many ways you can make breakfast sandwiches. I just love how versatile they are, but this is becoming my favorite way to make the eggs. If you remember in the past, I used to use my whoopie pie pan, and then I would make individual eggs. Oh, the Kinder's Buttery Steakhouse is amazing on eggs, by the way, so I did put some in my eggs. But this is becoming my favorite way. The individual egg patties worked great too, but this was just so much easier, less messier. I felt like I'm getting more egg, and so I'm getting more protein. And so this just turned out really well. So this is going to go into a 375-degree oven. It ended up taking about 15 minutes to cook and to make sure everything was cooked through. So just check it. Just depends on your oven. So definitely, check your oven and everything as it is cooking through. And I checked it about every 5 minutes. Now, you guys know I always like to put these in my air fryer, so I always put a layer of foil and a layer of parchment paper, and then I throw them in my air fryer at 400 for 5 minutes. That's how I cook these in the mornings before I eat them. Unless you put them in the freezer, then you want to do them for about 7 or 8 minutes. So I'm going to weigh out my my turkey. So I'm just going to do about 1.5 ounces because this package has 4.5 servings in it, and I want to make 6 breakfast sandwiches. So I wanted to do about 1.5 ounces because 2 ounces is a serving. So that's what I measured out. So I cut my eggs into 6 portions. So I'm just going to put my egg down, my turkey down, and then we're going to add on a slice of cheese and then put our top on there. Now, these English muffins, they smelled so good. I love buttermilk, bread really well, and sourdough. So those are my favorite English muffins, are sourdough and buttermilk. So I'm just going to continue making all of these, and we'll have our very perfect breakfast sandwiches. Again, breakfast sandwiches are so versatile. You could put Canadian bacon, you could do sausage, you could do just regular bacon. I mean, it is just so many things you could do, but look how amazing these look, and they will be so good coming out of my air fryer. So thank you guys, as always, for taking time out of your day to watch my videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. All the recipes will be linked down below. Bye, guys.